Let's dive into some Pittsburgh Steelers football. Over the weekend, they signed Isaac Seumalo to a 3-year deal. A second Philadelphia Eagles offensive lineman, Andy Weidel, is putting his paw prints all over the Steelers free agency. This time, it seems as if those questions that we had with Nate Herbig have been answered. Will he compete for Kevin Dotson's job? Does this mean that the Steelers are moving on from Kevin Dotson so far, or so on and so forth? Seumalo kind of says yes. The answer there is yes. I'm the starting left guard. If I'm healthy, he has struggled with injuries the last 2 years, but he comes in here. I think the next question is, do you view Nate Herbig as Kevin Dotson's full-on replacement, to the point where Kevin Dotson will go from starting 17 games last season to not being on the roster come the start of 2023?
Yes, I do think Nate Herbig is going to take over as the full-time starting right guard. Am I correct?
No,
Right guard,
left guard would be
left guard.
Seumalo. Herbig would be the backup.
Right guard would be the backup.
Yes.
Yeah. Kevin Dotson's getting pushed out of the picture. And there's no kind of two ways about it. There's no way around the fact that he's got two players in front of him that are clearly better than him. And yeah, Seumalo struggled with injuries and stuff like that, but that's why you have Nate Herbig. Maybe you might consider keeping Dotson around for some depth, but I don't know. You can probably get more value from a trade than you can from keeping him on the roster.
Yeah, and I think the Steelers have kind of, sorted out their plan already. People were getting on me last week because they were saying, oh, well, the Steelers have looked at early options at center. And I guess they have, but it wasn't like it wasn't a first round, second round guy. It's all the second, third round picks where you could get them at 49, maybe 80. That is, I think, where the Steelers are looking when it comes to a center, so that they could add depth behind Mason Cole, because I don't know if Nate Herbig could play center, and I know Kevin Dotson does not play center. And then you keep Nate Herbig as your backup swing guard, and then you move on from Kevin Dotson. The question now is, what do you get for Kevin Dotson? Where do you get? He was a 4th-round pick. He's got plenty of starting experience. He's definitely got upside. If the dude could stay healthy, he's a quality starter. I mean, maybe not a high-end starter, but I think he sits there right with Nate Herbig. He's just, his time in Pittsburgh is over. What do you think you could get for Kevin Dotson in a trade?
You could get a late-round pick. I don't know. You're looking for something of equal value, but I don't think you're going to necessarily get that.
Yeah.
I don't know what the proper term for this is, but you're kind of taking a discount on Kevin Dotson.
Mm-hmm.
You used a 4th-round pick on him, and it was not a miss, but it wasn't everything you kind of hoped he would be.
Yeah.
And with those injury concerns, you're going to have to your return compensation for him is going to be lesser than what his original value was.
Yeah, I agree. Let me lay out a situation for you. I'm pulling up Kevin Dotson's, how many starts he has during his career. So he started all 17 games last year. He's got 30 starts, 39 games in 3 seasons with the Steelers. Draft night, because I think a trade could get done on draft night. Let me toss this scenario at you. Kevin Dotson sitting there. Are the Steelers, they obviously don't have a 5th-round pick. Kevin Dotson's are whoever's on the board. Kevin Dotson's up for a trade. The Steelers offer whoever who needs a left guard Kevin Dotson and maybe next year's 6th or one of their 7ths for that 5th-round pick. Do you think that's a trade that gets done, especially on draft night, where I feel like the value of players for trades is at its highest?
Yeah, that sounds like it. I mean, if I'm an opposing team that needs a left guard or needs a guard, that sounds like that does not sound unreasonable at all to me. The very least, you're getting quite honestly, the difference between a 5th and a 7th-round pick, to me that just feels closer to just a pick swap than anything else.
You could find a 5th. I feel like is still riding that. There's potential. You know what I mean? Like a guy could slide. You're not wrong. Like Marcus Allen was a 5th-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
He's a 7th-round value, obviously. Mark Robinson was a 7th-round pick. Isaiah Loudermilk was a 5th-round pick, 7th-round value. But there also are guys like, I think Quincy Roche was a 6th or 5th-round pick or something like that. And the Steelers had him valued a lot earlier. But I don't think it's a major upgrade. But I think to get a 5th, I mean, you could use a 5th. Right. You could swap out a 5th and trade for next year, trade for another position, go find a backup tight end. The Steelers went on a rampage a couple of years ago where they were just shipping out 5th-round picks and 4th-round picks for whatever they could get their hands on. Like Isaiah Loudermilk got traded for a 4th-round pick. They moved into the 5th round. Vance McDonald a couple of years ago was a 4th-round pick, maybe a 5th-round pick. Nick Vannett a couple of years ago was a 4th or 5th-round pick. The Steelers love sending their 5th-round picks. So if you could get another one, I think you can move it. But I agree. I think that makes a lot of sense for the Steelers. You look at Kevin Dotson, and it doesn't make any sense to cut him. Worst case scenario, you keep him on this roster for all of 2023, even if he's inactive, because there is literally 0 point in moving on from him on a rookie deal, especially when you have 1 year left on a rookie deal. And you could trade him by the deadline. Like, even if it doesn't happen right now, if it doesn't happen by the draft, if he goes into the summer and he doesn't get the starting job, then at some point during the season, somebody's going to lose an offensive lineman, and they're going to call for Kevin Dotson and say, hey, look, we'll give you whatever. It's the Mason Rudolph situation. Mason Rudolph is worth literally nothing right now. He's sitting on the open market, not doing anything whatsoever. Week 8 of the NFL season, Mason Rudolph was worth a lot, like a lot.
Yeah, I don't think Kevin Dotson's value is going to decline.
No,
by sitting behind these two guys that we mentioned. Yeah, it can't, especially if he's resting up those ankles and making sure he's not getting into injury trouble. Like that's ideal for both him and the Steelers. Quite honestly, like his value goes up. He'll get a chance to prove himself. He could get a chance to prove himself on another team and keep his career going in that way. But yeah, you can't let him. You're not going to cut him and let him walk for nothing.
No, there's no way. It doesn't make any sense. If he was expensive, yes, but he's one of the cheapest members of your roster, so you might as well keep him around. Do you think that, because in my head, this is how the tables have laid themselves out for the Pittsburgh Steelers? The groundwork is there. They bulked up the interior of the offensive line, which was their highest concern. We said that from the Senior Bowl of it's not really the tackles, it's definitely the interior. Well, they went out and they got 2 guys that they feel rather comfortable with on the interior. I think Seumalo offers veteran experience. It was a young offensive line. People last year were talking about how James Daniels was the leader. James Daniels is only 25 years old, 26 years old. He's very young. So you bring in Seumalo, who will be 30 years old by the start of the season. That's the veteran leadership. You've now filled the interior offensive line. Now, I think the Steelers, just in my, connecting the dots here, I look at the Steelers. Do you hear my cat, by the way?
No.
No, he's over here having a whole conversation with us. He's like, really? They're gonna get rid of Kevin Dotson? He's talking the whole time. All right. So the way I look at it, the Steelers have laid the groundwork now to the interior has filled. Their chances are 17 is still a corner. I have a hard time believing it's not a corner. Or Brian Branch. Like it's a defensive back to some degree. 32, I think, is now open for a tackle or an inside linebacker. And I think that's where they're going with either of them.
What? An inside linebacker, really?
Dude, they took Trenton Simpson out to dinner, and people were getting on me. They're like, well, they took the quarterbacks, but they didn't take Kenny Pickett out to dinner. Yeah, dude, they didn't do anything with Kenny Pickett. They told the world we do not like Kenny Pickett. Thought they did not like Kenny Pickett, and then they were just like, gotcha. So this year they don't have to do that because nobody likes the inside linebackers.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I feel like we talked about this before coming on. Like a nose tackle would be really nice, and
nose tackle would be very nice.
And I don't know. I feel like that's a more pressing need than what they. And like you said, no one likes the inside linebackers this year. There's no reason they couldn't get value, like with pick 40. What's it? 49, right? Yeah, right. Like 32. I think I'd go with the defensive lineman on that. I mean, it all depends on who's there, but
yeah. But do you still? I agree. If I'm drafting for the Pittsburgh Steelers, nose tackle, like that defensive big defensive lineman in the middle is priority 2 for me outside of cornerback. What about a tackle? What about an offensive tackle? DeJuan Jones they brought in for a visit. I believe that's it for right now. Darnell Wright, I believe, might be on their list. If not, they've met with Darnell Wright a couple of times. He might be sitting there. Do you see an offensive tackle? Do you see them going to replace the offensive line? Really?
No, I don't actually see them going into this draft thinking, "Oh, we've got to get a day one starter right away."
Okay.
I don't know. Like I think we talked about this at the end of the season. Like that offensive line showed improvement, and they were not by the end of the year. They were not. They were not the worst unit in the league, like we all kind
Yeah.
of expected them to be at the beginning of the year. And you made upgrades this offseason already. I don't think there's any much more pressing need now to draft offensive linemen. If DeJuan Jones is there at 32, there's no way
You pass that up, right? You just
right,
take him. There, the
right,
upside is there. Even if he doesn't start right now, you just look
right,
at him and go, "Well, that's a guy that could start
right.
at left tackle
That
for a
guy
long
could
time."
start and be incredible.
Yeah.
And so I don't think you can pass that up. Other than that, I'm not sure what like bar, barring Skaronski or Paris Johnson, like unless one of those top end guys falls really far unexpectedly, there's not going to be. I don't think there's going to be a tackle outside of Jones
That
that
has that
is
value.
right that is worth that pick there for the Steelers.
Yeah, I could see that. I could agree with that one. I think either way, it's a win. Like if the Steelers just replace Kevin Dotson this offseason and they give Dan Moore Jr. another year, or if they draft somebody that they say, well, you could wait and we'll see what happens here. I think that's a win. Like that's you've upgraded the offensive line enough to say you've tried. This is an improvement. I think it sends a clear message. I think just to wrap up the Seumalo talk here, I think what it did was say we are done messing around on the offensive line. Like we are that is not going to be the reason that we are not successful. If it's Kenny Pickett, then it's Kenny Pickett. If it's Najee Harris, then it's Najee Harris. But we're done with all the if it's Matt Canada, it's Matt Canada. Almost forgot about that one. But it's not going to be our offensive line's really bad so that we have an excuse to give these guys everybody another shot. I think that their message was very clear. I'm all about it. I think it was the right move. I think fans should be excited about it. Now it's about what comes next. And